You guys could be with us on this Sunday night, 9:05 kickoff time. Things get started for real. I got Titans Rossi in the house to talk about it and talk about some of these battles that we presume is going to take place. Now, the media, and if you want to buy into the press conferences and coach talk and some of these writers out there, they got their guys locked in. They figure they know who their starting guys are on the offensive side of the ball and defensive side of the ball. Now, we know the defensive side of the ball, there's going to be a lot more starters because there's not a lot of starters coming back on the defense side of the ball. I think I wrote down somewhere 7 offensive guys will return from last year. 5 defensive guys will return from last year's starting lineup. So there's going to be a lot of creativity, a lot of wiggle room for some of these guys to step in. We already know the cornerbacks are upgraded, which is great. Offensive side of the ball, we got some, upgrade in receivers. So bottom line, we'll talk about like what we feel we still need to talk about, what's still a key position going into camp. And I'll ask Titans Rossi, I'll ask you in the house, does training camp even matter? Or does the coaches already kind of figured out who they got? I mean, after all, Sadiq Charles, which came in and fine, Coach Bill Callahan, offensive line coach, seemed to already annoyed him, the right guard starter. If you buy into the media, that's what they're going to tell you as well. And they didn't even have pads on, according to Jim Wyatt. So he even had a tough time trying to figure out, hey, how do you win a spot when you're not even in full pads going up against guys on the defense? But the Tennessee Titans apparently figured it out. Right tackle, we'll see what happens with that. But let's bring in Titans Rossi. Shout out to Titans Rossi. He's huge on the network. So shout out to him. I think he's got a show maybe even Tuesday. I don't know if that's official yet. But Titans Rossi, thanks for joining here on Upload Live.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely be going live Tuesday this week. Training camp's going to be starting. I think, the plan is to have a couple of shows this week, and got a guest coming on. I haven't mentioned this to you yet, Upload, but Mr. Tyler Rowland from the Locked On Titans podcast will be with us. I believe that's probably going to be Thursday night. So excited to get his takes on training camp. And yeah, man, it's finally, we're getting some action. We got some action coming up with training camp. Football is not far away. So, I'm excited for this season.
I'm excited too, because I don't feel like there's any expectations. I think some of us just overgloss everything. We do it year in and year out. Everything's great all the time, even when things are going bad. I remember the one year we ended up losing 7 straight when they fired Robinson in the middle of the year, playing the Jaguars that week, where we had first place. We were 7-3 under control, and then we lost a couple games, including the Philadelphia game. But even the last week, fans were like, some of them were like, man, we beat the Jaguars. You never know in the playoffs, which technically they're right. But, this team was really bad. And I give them a lot of credit for fighting in that last week. But there's really no expectations. I don't think. Am I wrong? Like, do you have high expectations for this football team this year? Or is it kind of like, we'll just see what happens?
I don't. I'm kind of, my expectation is kind of middle of the road. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm expecting. Like if they're kind of middle of the road, kind of right on the edge of not really a playoff team, but right kind of on that edge, like I would be satisfied with that, considering new coaching staff, all that type of stuff. Because you look at it seems like there's a team every season that kind of exceeds expectations. You had the Houston Texans. They went off last season. And that's a rare thing to have, just that type of lightning in a bottle with a rookie quarterback. We'll see if he has the sophomore slump or not. But I'm not expecting like just this huge drastic change like some people are in the Titans this season. I'm expecting kind of middle of the road, competitive, and better offense.
Yeah, I think that's the key, right? New coach, offensive side of the ball. We haven't had an offensive coach in a long time. What can this team do? And Levis
Right.
is going to have the talent. Offensive line, I think at least the left side seems to be sufficient. The right side, I think still yet to be determined. But you're right, like the offensive side of the ball alone is worth the intrigue going into week 1 against the Bears and so on, forth down the line. So I'm going to ask you this up front because I don't want to forget it, and I think it's important leading into these battles that we're going to talk about. But in your honest opinion, how much does training camp really even matter? Like, it's a silly question for me to ask you this because it should matter, right? Like, this is where everybody goes out and proves their worth. Everybody's being told, hey, you got a shot. You know, like Mason Kinsey, for example. This isn't anything new to him, but he wouldn't be here if he knew he didn't have a shot, right? And I think a lot of these guys wouldn't even try if they knew that it didn't have a shot. But I also want your wisdom here because if you really kind of look through it, sometimes these guys have an amazing run in preseason. Fans start to fall in love with them, and then they don't make the team. So my question to you, sorry to put you on the spot to start the show, but how much does training camp really matter for not only just the NFL, but especially for the Tennessee Titans?
I think, I think it matters more for like practice squad potential. I think for the most part, they already kind of know who they want, who they're going to put in there. They might have a battle. I mean, I think it matters for maybe if you have a position where you have a player or a couple players that you really don't know. I mean, I think they always have kind of that one guy where they're like, we expect you to take the reins. You know what I mean? Like, now the right tackle position this year, I think it's one of those training camps that might matter because we kind of don't really know. It's kind of up in the air with like MPF and all that. But you hear the John Ajoku guy and all that. So I think that it might matter for maybe one position, two positions across the board, but who are we kidding? I think these guys already kind of know what they got for the most part. And I think they're just trying to hammer out their practice squad players for the most part.
That's a good take. I mean, practice squad does matter, especially when you lead the league in injuries for the last 3 years. We're going to try to pick which guy we think is going to win and make a case for each guy, even though the media is pretty much locked in some of these guys. We'll let you know those guys, whoever the media has already put in. I think the Tennessean came out with something yesterday. They went through each position group. They've also done that where it's pretty much universal amongst the media who they have starting and the tea leaves they're reading through. We got Gus Joe with the new regime, at least 2 drives every game. That would be beneficial. And then Mitchell, what's up, buddy? Tighten up. Thanks for being a moderator to you and the producer. So our first one, I think when you guys see who's number 5 on our list, you'll be like, roll your eyes and be like, it's not that big of a deal. But remember, the last 3 years, we're turning the page. We led the league, I think, in the most injuries. This position's a lot different compared to the other positions. If this position goes down, your whole season could be over. So I think it is valuable to have a discussion on number 5. And number 5 is, bam, backup quarterback. Mason Rudolph versus Malik Willis. Rossi, I'll start with you. You guys can leave a comment in the chat who you think is going to be the number 2. I think I know who the number 2 is. I've been hearing from a lot of people in the NFL community who they think number 2 is. Push come to shove, week 1, who do you think is going to be the backup quarterback?
I think it's definitely Mason Rudolph. I mean, the guy's been a starter in this league. He's played some good football, like here and there. He started a couple games. I mean, last season with the Steelers, he did okay for the times he was in there. I mean, 3 TDs, 0 interceptions, 719 yards, 118 rating in his spot duty and this and that. He's got 4 years of experience in the league. I mean, as far as Malik Willis goes, I think he's a great guy. Like, I've had a kind of an experience with him when he took some pictures with us and Tyler. Shout out to Tyler, Titans Time podcast. But I just think he's just not NFL caliber, in my opinion. Like, when you see him out there, he's just very, I don't know, he's just frantic. Like, something's not clicking. Like, can he be one day? Maybe. I think Malik Willis could be a potential backup in the league. But I just don't see it. I see Mason Rudolph all the way. I think obviously they brought him in for a reason, and I think they already know who the backup's going to be.
Do you think if you were going Mason Rudolph, then is Malik Willis on the football team, do you think, week 1?
That's a good question, because I think, I'm not as keen on the 3 quarterback rule. I know, like, they're allowed to have three on the active roster game day, right? Are they
Yes.
allowed to put him on the practice squad and then just elevate him each game? Or, like, see, that's what I don't know how it works. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, I don't
But
think
I
he's really
think,
taking a spot, so they wouldn't really need to put, you know what I mean? Because he would already
okay,
have a locked-in spot. Unless they
yeah,
had another quarterback, they were kind of going between, you know what I mean?
right. I don't know, man. I'd have to do some research to see. I would say if it's where he's taken a valuable spot, then I could see him not being, or I could see him being on the practice squad, you know.
Yeah. I'm
So,
telling you, I'm going to go a different direction here, and I
okay.
don't care. I'm going to speak you guys know I'm going to speak my truth and tell you what I believe, and if you guys believe it, great. If you don't, that's fine. But Rudolph is already past. I mean, that's not even a
Yeah.
Rudolph, which I wanted to put this on there, but I think your larger battle heading into week 1 is how close is Rudolph to Levis? That's going to be your battle here.
Interesting.
Everybody just gave Levis the starting spot, and that's fine. That's totally fine. Now, the media, national media, not so fast. They always said we needed to bring somebody in and take it, and then have Levis eventually take it from that person. But we're under the impression, I think it's already set in stone, like Levis is going to be your starter, and they're rolling with Levis. But hearing from more and more Pittsburgh fans, hearing some of the stories out of the Pittsburgh radio market, like Rudolph, from what I'm gathering, has been very impressive at camp so far. And I'm just telling you, he goes out. All it's going to take, Rossi, is a couple preseason games, man, where he goes out there zinging it all over, and then everybody's like, oh my gosh. It happens all the time. It happened when Ryan Tannehill in week 1 against Philadelphia Eagles, preseason, I should say, the first game against the Eagles at Philadelphia. Marcus Mariota, I think, struggled a little bit. Ryan Tannehill went right out there throwing it all over the place, and people are like, well, should Tannehill start? And I was like, well, he should be at least to compete. I think you're doing a disservice if you allow Rudolph, if he's so much better than Malik, to not allow him to even challenge Will Levis. So I think as the season plays out, you'll start to see it already at week 1. I think Mason Rudolph, it's going to be interesting to see if he's within striking distance, especially with a new coach. You got a new offense. You're only in year 2. You might struggle early on. And if Rudolph gives you the best chance to win, I don't know how you play that, man. But it will be interesting. They brought him here for a reason. If you're going to say the same thing about offensive line with Bill Callahan, you got to at least be open to the idea. So that's my take on it. I think Rudolph's been very impressive early from what I've heard. We'll see just how he does during preseason. Maybe he has more to fight for than just the backup quarterback spot. But what do I know? Most things I say is wrong anyways.
No, I mean, I think it's a valid point, to be honest. I mean, Levis was a rookie last season. We don't really know what we have in him. we blame it on the offensive line. We really don't know, man. We might not find out this year. The offensive line, it supposedly should be better. I mean, in theory, it should be better. I think bringing in the center, Cushenberry, is a fantastic move. But yeah, man, there's a lot to prove this year for Levis, and that's a great point, man. I mean, Mason could compete. I mean, he started in this league and he's had some success.
Yeah.
And I've seen him play before. Like he's had some good games.
People don't realize too, and I've shared this story twice, right? Where Mason Rudolph gets called in to the coach's office, and he's being told that they are going to sign Russell, right? And
Mhm.
when they're going to sign Russell, they are going to release him. And the first person he calls is Kenny Pickett, because they were friends. They were in the same quarterback room. And that ticked the crap out of Kenny Pickett because he thought he was going to be the guy. And now all of a sudden, you bring in Russell Wilson, maybe not so fast. So he gets this disgruntled or whatever, and they end up sending him to Philadelphia. But a lot of people think the Steelers just gave up on Mason Rudolph. That's not true. The only thing they gave up on him with was when they signed Russell Wilson. They knew they were going to keep Kenny Pickett, then he had to go. But if you talk to any Steeler fans, diehard Steeler fans, majority of them love him and think he's going to start here. Start, believe it or not. Because other than one game against, Levis on that Thursday night game, I believe it was, against Steelers, which I thought Levis played really well, and a lot of those same fans told me Levis did play well. They still have a lot of faith in Rudolph. So we'll see what happens. Got a couple comments here. We got Gus that says Rudolph easily. Willis might be cut or sent to the practice squad. If you follow a certain YouTube channel, they've put it on there 1,000 times about how he's going to be traded. Do you think he'll get traded? Do you think anybody in the NFL wants him at this point? Assuming he just does the status quo during preseason?
No, I don't think. What would somebody give for him at this point? I don't know. I mean, maybe you trade him for a practice squad guy or a backup or something like a third string practice squad type of guy. I don't think he's really has any trade value at this point. But there might be a team that really likes his upside and his athletic ability. Who knows?
We have a Texan fan in the house, so shout out to the Texans. I believe we're wearing the Oiler uniforms against the Texans against this year. I don't know how true that is, but I thought I read that. As a Texans fan, he says you got a dominant cornerback crew. I'll just kind of summarize what he said. And you're probably going to throw an INT or two. And that's definitely true. Good point. Brandon also says the Titans were the only team in the division smart enough to upgrade their secondary. Good point. Stoner Titan says Will Levis. Malik Willis will be QB3. Gus says, do you want mistakes to be made early so you can be corrected faster? Good point. Sting says, I would keep both. Stoner says, we do joint practices with the 49ers in a couple weeks. That's really going to separate the boys from the men, right? Mitchell says, to be the emergency quarterback, he will need to be on the 53. As the emergency QB, he won't count against the game day roster. So there it is. So he still has to be on the 53, but he wouldn't count on the people that could dress for, because not all 53 get the dress. Yeah. Gus says preseason snaps by Mason will tell us how close he is to Levis. And then Mitchell says the season is about to determine whether Levis is the guy. There's zero chance Rudolph challenges him. He says the last game of the year, we're wearing the Oiler uniforms. So, I mean, everybody wants to win. I don't know if they're going to sabotage the season to see if Levis goes out there and really struggles and just let him struggle the entire year. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens, but let's just hope Levis is good, and then we don't even have to have this discussion. And if anything happens to Levis, let's just hope Rudolph's good enough to be able to go out and win a game or two. I think we can all come together on that point.
Yeah, so there was a tweet from A to Z, and just Goes back to the uniform. Sorry, I just saw it pop up. But according to Mike Keith on the OTP, the Titans will not wear Oilers throwback uniforms until week 18, which of course is against the Texans. So that's a pretty good shot at the Texans there. So that'd be awesome if they do. Hopefully we win this time and not embarrass ourselves.
Yeah, hopefully.
God,
But
that was a disaster.
Texans are going to be good. I mean, they're going to be good this year. They upgraded just as much as we did. Week 18, it's going to be a playoff chance, or is the Texans are going to have the division wrapped up? Who knows? But I don't know. I love the Oiler uniforms. I wish they'd wear them more. But, I mean, what do I know? Their first game against the Falcons they won, so I know it's disappointing they lost last year when they were wearing them. What else we got? Sting to poison. I don't think Levis struggles this year. He and Hopkins had a good connection. That's definitely true. Those two did 75 receptions for D-Hop last year. That's what I said about the uniforms, Rossi. So that's what Mitchell says. So let's move on to, I think we're both in agreement, Rudolph. I think the ultimate issue with Malik Willis, will a coaching staff buy into him this year? I don't think they've been very fair to him his first 2 years in the league, but ultimately he's got to have an opportunity to be able to show his skills, have somebody invest in him, put him in a good position, and then see what happens. He was not put in good positions last year. They clearly should have went with Will Levis against the Ravens. They held him out, and they just threw Malik in there. And Malik really struggled in that game. And then ultimately that was their cue then to put Levis in the following bye week when they got home and returned against the Falcons. It was all played out. They basically threw Malik Willis to the Wolves in that game. And then they put him in a position on a Sunday Night Football game last year against the Kansas City Chiefs. And he actually only threw up the ball 10 times. But he had the Titans in position to win the game if it wasn't for some stupid ref calls at the end. So
right.
he did at least keep them in the game. All right, moving on to number 4. I think this is very overlooked. I've said it from the start. I didn't even put Kenneth Murray Jr. on the list because he's already been gifted the golden starting spot. But he's not great against the run. I don't even think he's that great of a linebacker. Again, I've already told you about what Pro Football Focus said. I've told you what other Charger fans have said. He's been a huge disappointment for the Chargers. So now he comes into Nashville because he signed a big deal, and they're just going to throw him the starter spot. Fine, whatever. Now, of these guys, rest on the list. You got 4 of them. You do have Luke Gifford as well somewhere on there. He didn't make my 4 here. But you got Campbell, Gibbons, Reese, and Gray. Gray, I'm very high on, the rookie from North Carolina. So let's just assume Kenneth Murray's the guy. The media's already anointed Gibbons, but we've seen Gibbons play last year. I think he's very vulnerable to get his spot taken if some of these other guys show up. Of these 3 other guys, which guy, maybe you could even go with Luke Gifford, but of those guys, who do you think is going to be the most to challenge Gibbons?
Yeah, and I don't understand the fascination with Gibbons. Like I don't get it. Like to me, he seemed kind of slow. Like he missed a lot of tackles. He couldn't cover. Like I don't get the fascination with Dr. Gibby as a starting inside linebacker. Like I mean, Otis Reese, I thought was impressive, fast, kind of remind you of David Long-esque a little bit, which I think Otis Reese has a really good opportunity to get some playing time. But honestly, like I'm really banking on Cedric Gray. Like I think Cedric Gray could really step up in camp and kind of take that starting spot. Like at the opposite of Kenneth Murray. I think Gray has a ton of upside, and I think he could. I mean, why not? You know what I mean? He 4th round pick. I think that he could really step in and do it if he really is as talented as he was in college. But for me personally, like I'm either with Reese or Gray.
You know what's fascinating about this? If we put it into wide receiver perspective, you know they've already given the job to Jackson, right? Jaquan Jackson out of Tulane. They've already given it to him. Boom,
Yeah.
done. They did that day one when he was drafted. I mean, some of them. Paul Kaharski was one. Go back and read his tweets. But he said it plain as day. There's your new punt returner, and many more Titans media members have done that. And even the Tennessean that came out yesterday or last night with their article on training camp to kind of set the tone. They have him already locked in at a wide receiver. But with Gray, it's like, nope, he's not going to start yet. So I think they're doing the right thing. I think Gray's got to earn it. I think Jackson should have to earn it as well. J.C. Latham just doesn't have any competition, and he's been a monster so far. So, you know, he's playing left tackle. It should be right, playing left. I'm not worried about him at all. But when it comes to these other guys, I am with you. I think Gray fits this defense well. He reminds me a little bit of David Long. He can cover the screen. He can stop the run. I mean, he's going to be he's going to need coached up. He's going to need more coaching. His comp, I believe, was Kenneth Murray Jr. They said that doesn't make me feel a whole lot better. But ultimately, at the end of the day, like Reese has shown signs he can do some things. Campbell, I don't really know. I mean, whatever. Out of Ole Miss, I think they drafted him really late, right? I think they drafted him really late a couple years ago. I think every Titans fan should want Gray to win the job, because if he wins the job, that solidifies the draft pick, but that also gives us more optimism and hope. Gibbons is solid. He's one of Vrabel's special guys that he takes somebody and turns, somebody out of nothing into someone. And I don't think Vrabel ever got enough credit for that on the defensive side of the ball. Offense, totally different story. But defense, he did work his wonders with some defensive linemen and obviously with some linebackers. But to keep it short, I don't know how you guys feel about it in the chat. I'm hoping Gray's the guy. That's my hope. Kenneth Murray Jr., I think we're stuck with him. I don't know what else to tell you guys. If he struggles and it's terrible, I warned you. I mean, I don't know what else to do. We do have some comments on that. Kenny said that, I love the Pred logo there. He said Gray will start over Gibbons. Derek says Gibbons will be great. Gus says my expectations for Murray are low, but I expected Denard Wilson to use him better. And that goes with Gus saying that he believes that if they were honest, Charger fans, they would say their defensive coach wasn't very good and they didn't coach him up very well. Sting to Poison said this might be biased, but I think Cedric Gray and Jack Gibbons to start this season. Now, I am more intrigued with that than Kenneth Murray Jr. because you don't have to start Kenneth Murray Jr. Again, I'm not spreading false things here. He's terrible against the run. He can't cover. The only thing he can do somewhat okay is rush the passer. So, I mean, is it fair to say, like, we're just going to rush the passer with one of our inside linebackers every play? I mean, that's not realistic either, because I would run right at that and I'm going to end up turning a 10-yard gain into a 40. So ultimately, push come to shove, I'm hoping for what Sting to Poison says. Give me Gibbons and give me Gray, and then have Reese and use Murray sporadically. But Rossi, the problem with Murray is they're paying him a pretty good amount of money. I would hope he does more than just play like one down guy and just on a pass rush situation.
Yeah, no, I mean he definitely needs to play more. I can't remember what it was, like 2 years, 14 million, something like that. Let me see. 2 years, 15.5 million, $5 million signing bonus. So no, I mean the guy definitely needs to step in and be a starter. But from what I hear coming out of San Diego is they didn't really know what to do with Murray. I mean, that's why they just used him in pass rush situations, because the guy was just kind of, I don't want to say he was a complete bust, but he just did not live up to the expectations at all. And to me, it's kind of like, if you want to compare signings upload, I would compare like the Aaron Brewer to Miami signing to Kenneth Murray to us signing. Like
It's a good point.
I think a lot of Chargers fans were kind of like, ha ha, like, you know what I mean? Like, and it kind of like we were with Dolphins fans, like, I got you, like, so look, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that Murray comes in here and kills it, because he's making a decent amount of money. I mean, is it like top tier inside linebacker money? Which inside linebackers, I mean, they're not like the highest paid in the league, but you're still paying them a good little chunk.
Yeah. And Andre Dillard is, if anybody needs a name, Andre Dillard. Eagle fans warned us he was awful. They warned us.
Yeah.
And we were like,
Yeah.
oh, well, Rand's not going to bring him in if he doesn't think he can play. And it's like, all right, well, even Brunskill's getting replaced already. And that was one of Rand's guys for the 49ers. Sin City Titan, if you want to help us out, I put the link in the members feed to see if how the Zoom thing would work out. Even if you don't want to like join, you could be like, hey, I don't want to really be on camera and join. If you could at least sign in so I can see your box, that would be great, just to make sure that works. And then if you do want to join at some point tonight, like I said, I have 40 minutes from the 9:30 mark. So I think that would probably run up about 10:10. I think we'll probably be pretty much off the air by then. But if you want to participate and come in and ask a question or give your take on something, just let me know and we'll get you in here. All right. All right, so let's move on. I think we're both in agreement, so hopefully it's gray. So let's move on to the next one. Bam. Wide receiver. Now, wide receiver, this one is not for who's going to start, number one, number two, and I'll even argue number three. I think they're going to already give Nick Westbrook-Ikhine that spot. It's going to be obviously Hop, Ridley, and then Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, and then they'll float in one of these guys every now and then. What they kind of did last year with Kyle Phillips. So you got Kinsey. He's got some extra skill because he can punt return. Kyle Phillips cannot punt return. That's done over with. So the only skill he pretty much has right now is slot receiver. Jaquan Jackson supposedly can punt return and spot in as the slot guy. The problem I have with him is, Rossi knows, he drops a lot of punts. He drops balls, and he could take one to the house every now and then. And then you got Kyrus Jackson trying to get back to what he had before he lost it all when he got hurt. He was the punt returner, and then he got hurt, so he has an opportunity. I also put the Harrison guy on there, and there'll be some other guys, Treshaun Harrison, and there'll obviously be some other guys that'll have a shot at this. But your non-biased opinion, who do you think is going to get, I would even say the last spot, but this would be the 6th spot. You could even go 7, right? So this would be the 6th spot, I believe, because I think we got obviously Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot we have Tyler Boyd. How stupid of me. So Tyler Boyd would be 3. Ikhine is going to be 4. So your number 5 guy, who am I missing now? Am I missing anybody who? So this would be for 5 and 6.
Burks.
If we keep 6. Oh, Burks. Burks is 5.
Yeah.
He'll make the team. They may trade him, but he'll make the team. So this one will be after Burks, assuming they're only going to keep 6. I've heard anywhere between 6 and 8. But let's just say 6. Who's the last spot go to? I apologize. I totally forgot we even had Tyler Boyd. And that's the thing, how excited I am about Boyd. I just assume we didn't have him because we're always in a wide receiver mess year after year. But we got receivers this year. So who do you think is going to be basically the 6th guy then?
I think, Jaquan Jackson is already a lock because he's a 6th-round pick. Like, if he was a 7th-round pick, I would say, there's a possibility he could, make the practice squad or somebody could bump him. I think 100% he is already locked in, number 6. It'll be curious to see how many wide receivers the Titans keep on the active roster. I mean, the Bengals typically would keep 7. From what I think, we've heard that they're going to go with 6 possibly. But if we're talking about the 7th guy, I think then that's kind of up in the air because you got Kyrus, Phillips, Kinsey, whoever else is Trayshawn Harris, and all the other guys that are on the roster. But I think, look, I mean, who are we kidding ourselves? I think Jackson is already a lock at number 6, and he's the media darling already. We're going to see him all camp making plays. And look,
ladder drill.
I don't look. Honestly, I don't. I can see where the organization is coming from. You draft a guy in the 6th round. Obviously, you don't want to look like fools, and you want to give the guy probably at least a season. You know what I mean? I get that. I understand that. I understand the guy's speed, his ability. But really, man, if he can't return punts, like if he can't field punts in the NFL, he's got to go, just like Phillips, because you're looking at a guy like that. You need them to be good on special teams. Like, why do you think Mason Kinsey kept getting called up? Because they know he could catch a freaking punt. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
he was a reliable guy that was not going to drop the ball. Like, and that's important, right? That's important. Now, I mean, Jaquan Jackson with the new kickoff rules, he might be pretty good on that, because he's a real shifty, fast burst guy. So that might be something that really helps him out as far as securing that spot too. I think he's number 6. I think it's already written in stone.
And it pains me that you're right, because you're dead right. And that's what's wrong with this. This is ridiculous.
Right.
Because you get drafted number in the 6th round. You don't need anything else other than to look at the guy on the graphic who's to the left of him and Kyle Phillips. We heard the same thing with Kyle Phillips coming out of UCLA. Kinsey's done now. They finally got a punt returner. And Kyle Phillips, to give him credit, actually did quite well at UCLA, and he actually did better statistically in 3 years than Jackson did in 5 years. And I know he didn't really play much in one of those years. But again, the thing that pains me the most about this is Jackson's got to fix 3 things. He's got to he's got to catch the ball, the punt, don't drop punts. He's got to stay healthy, and he has to catch the ball when he's on the slot. And those are 3 challenging things that aren't easy to overcome. If I told you, like, dude, I'm the fastest guy in the world. Go back to Mighty Ducks 2. But I can't stop. Remember the guy who couldn't stop? It didn't matter. I forget his name. He's out of Miami.
Yeah.
He goes fast as he can't stop. So he's useless on the ice until he learned how to stop. With Jackson, I get it. He ran a 90-yard punt return against Memphis. That's awesome. But what else did he do that year? He averaged 6 yards and 20 other receptions. It just happened his one reception of the 21 went 90 yards, punt return, right? So this ain't a diss on Rand. Like, Rand's doing his job. He's bringing in competition. That's what he likes, the new kickoff. Or he's adjusting the new kickoff return rule. He can do kickoffs. He can do punts. He should be able to fill in the slot. But don't anoint him just on the roster spot until he fixes those 3 things. If he fixes those 3 things, I don't have any question in the world for you. But again, my sticking point, it's been since day one. I'm not changing my mind. Guy to his left, we did the same thing with him. And he's probably not going to make the football team this year. And that's Kyle Phillips.
All right. And Brian Badillo, he brings up Colton Dowell. That's another name. But I mean, he's still ACL. I mean, I don't see him. He made the team last year though. right? He made the
He
final.
did. The issue with Colton Dowell is not easy just to come back from injury like that, right? It's going to take some time. The other issue with Colton Dowell, it's a completely new coaching staff he's got to impress. And he's already got a guy above him, Nick Westbrook-Akina, that can do the same thing on special teams. So he made the team last year, but we can agree Tyler Boyd wasn't on the team. Calvin Ridley wasn't on the team.
No.
Jaquan Jackson wasn't on the team. Like, it's a different, but yeah, he will not take up a roster spot until he can return. We'll see what happens though when he does return. But I'm just gonna be honest with you. The 6 guys, Jackson, and then out of the rest of the guys, I don't know, man. I really don't know. I think Kyrus Jackson gets underlooked sometimes because of or overlooked because of the fact that he's been hurt for a while. Wasn't able to get back last year, or they just kept him out when he was healthier. Kinsey's been around for a long time. Kinsey's been around the longest, right? Him and Nick Westbrook-Akina on this football team.
Longest tenured Titans.
Yeah, and that's
since 2020.
So I don't want to discount him. Like he's Vrabel loved him. John Robinson loved him. I don't know what Rand thinks about him, but Rand's kept him around now for 2 years, right? He's going on year 2 even with Rand. So I think there's always a place for him on a football team. But ultimately, I agree with you. It pains me to say it, though, because I think he should have to earn it. And just being drafted in the 6th round doesn't mean anything to me.
Right.
All right, moving on. We got Stoner Tight says wide receiver 1. Okay, he's going through the list there. Burks, they're not. I agree with a lot of people. I think Locked On said that Burks ain't gonna get. Yeah, he'll make the team. Whether someone comes a calling, we'll see what happens. But he'll be fine. Again, the special team, they're just making it known like, hey, dude, you got to go out and produce this year. He's probably got the most on the line this year on that offensive side of the ball. All right, moving on to everybody's. Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, sorry, upload. But I said this on our show the other night with Burks, with Treylon Burks, like this season. If Treylon Burks is going to be on this team come 2025, come next season, I think he has to have more snaps than NWI this year. Like, I'm expecting him to have more snaps than NWI. If he doesn't and he doesn't go out there, I'm not asking that much, am I? Like, considering you have Ridley, Hopkins, and Boyd, if they stay primarily healthy, maybe one misses a game or 2 or 3 here and there, the guy has to have more snaps than NWI. Like, what are we talking about here? The guy's a first-round pick. He's so much more talented, speed, athleticism, all that. Now, not to discredit NWI by any means. The guy's a hard worker. He's worked his tail off since he's been in the NFL, all this and that. But I just, Burks has to have more snaps than NWI. If he doesn't have more catches, doesn't have more snaps, I'm done with the guy. I go somewhere else. Maybe you have a good opportunity somewhere else. Maybe somebody else can get the most out of him. Of course, that's staying healthy too.
But would it be his fault or would it be the coach's fault if he doesn't get more snaps than NWI?
I don't know. See, that's hard to answer because how much is this new staff going to love NWI? Because we know NWI was a Vrabel guy. Like, NWI can block.
He can block.
He does all the dirty work. He makes plays every now and then. He's had the past 2 seasons, he's had 400 yards, something like that. And how much is this new coaching staff going to take to guys like NWI, to Mason Kinsey, to Kyle Phillips, to Treylon Burks? Like, we don't really know, like, what style do they want? Because from what we're hearing upload is this is going to be a completely different offense. We're completely different.
Yeah.
So
we'll see, man.
We don't really know.
Remember the last time we were supposed to be completely different? LaFleur came to town.
Yeah.
And what do? Traded a rookie quarterback to the team we were playing in week 1 a week before the game. Who was that? It's from Washington State. Somebody in the chat will know.
I'm drawing a blank right now.
Oh, someone in the chat help us out. Washington State, I believe he was picked in the 6th round. And it was during that Amy Adams went on the sideline on the first preseason game or something, said she couldn't wait for this new offense and everyone was going to love it. And the week before we played the Dolphins, they traded him to, was it? I can't think of the guy's name. Maybe someone will figure it out. All right. So everyone's favorite, Rossi, offensive line, right guard, which is definitely the most important. If you guys don't think it is, I can't help you anymore. Offensive line is the most important part of this football team in 2024, assuming Will Levis is your guy. Because if they can't protect Will Levis, you'll never know if Will Levis is your guy. Left side, not worried about it. Skoronski, J.C. Latham, right? Cushenberry in the middle, not worried about that at all. Right side, train wreck. Not sure. A bunch of nobodies. And I don't know. I hope you guys don't buy into the Sadiq Charles thing as he's just going to be becoming the savior for the right guard spot. And then Nick Petit-Frere is just going to come on a shining horse somewhere and then all of a sudden be great from day one after missing so much time. It hasn't been existent in the offseason. Missed time last year. Struggled even after, 4 weeks he missed for that violation, the gambling thing he had. So of the guys for right guard, we'll start with right guard. Media, apparently Callahan already have given Sir King Charles, Sadiq Charles, the right guard spot. And Wyatt said, if you don't believe him, Wyatt said, it's very hard to judge linemen in OTAs because they're not, really going against anybody. And they're not in full pads. But we did that this year. At least that right guard. Who should be the right guard starting the season? Who do you think will be the starting? I mean, Sadiq Charles, but do you think he'll really be the starter, Rossi?
I have no idea. I mean, yeah, they seem to be hyping Sadiq Charles, but honestly, I would like to see Radens get a shot. And Radens already came out and said, when I met with Bill Callahan, I'm going to be a guard. That was the first time we ever heard any concrete, solid notion or quote saying, I am a guard. That's what I'm going to be. I'm not going to play, 2 different positions and they're going to move me around and this and that. So now, who knows? That might change. But I honestly want to see Dylan Radin step into that position. He was a 2nd round pick. I think he's got a lot of upside. I think he's got probably at this point in his career more upside as a guard, considering that's what he's primarily been playing at. So I would like to see Radens. I really don't know. I mean, I could see them putting Charles in there, but I think you got a good battle there probably between Charles, Brunskill, and Radens. I would go between Brunskill and Radens. We've seen Brunskill play. He was decent. He wasn't a terrible guard.
Yeah, and we've went through this before. Everyone knows how I feel. Luke Falk. There it is. Good job, Lone Star.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember
him?
Okay. Yeah.
They drafted him late. And the issue was, if you have this new offense, why do you think Miami wanted him? I think it's just ridiculous. So he gets a weak jump start. We know that was the longest game in history with all the storms and the delays. And Delaney Walker breaks his leg, and the rest is history, right? Derrick Henry had a 60-yard touchdown run, and it got held back because Delaney Walker was being ripped down by his face mask. Remember, they call him for holding? But no, Sadiq Charles, he's got to go out and earn it. I don't know, it's kind of the theme of the night. Now, Brunskill, we went through this. Brunskill was your best offensive lineman last year. Brunskill is the most experienced lineman on the list. Sadiq Charles is younger. Brunskill's 30, though. For an offensive lineman, that's not terrible. And again, just to reiterate, they brought Brunskill here from San Francisco. So Rand, is not going to bring him here if he sucked. So he comes in. And it's just shocking to me that everybody turned on this guy. And that's the stuff I'm talking about. That's what really freaking ticks me off. It's like Brunskill's done nothing to anybody. He's been on a terrible offensive line last year, but he was the best offensive line we had. Could you imagine if you surround him with some talent like he had in San Francisco, then put him on the offensive line? So I think this is a joke that on day one, I don't really care. I understand Bill Callahan. That's fine. Bill Callahan wants to pick his guy. Great, whatever. But on day one and OTAs, day one of training camp, Brunskill should be the one with that job. These other guys should try to take him away. And again, we have a bunch of what ifs. Well, this could happen, or hey, Charles is younger and he could have some more upside. I don't want any of that. You're trying to protect Will Levis. That's the job. If Sadiq Charles goes out and does a Billy Bob from Varsity Blues and falls over and your quarterback gets destroyed, the season's done now, unless you believe in Mason Rudolph. So don't tell me it doesn't matter. Put guys in there that are ready to go day one. Don't give me this Charles thing and be like, well, he might be the best guy down the line. That's why I get ticked off.
All right.
Go Billy Bob.
And Mitchell brings up the point, and Bill Callahan I trust, and, whoever Bill puts out there is, and, okay. I hear you there, and I guess we do have to trust what Bill Callahan does. If start of the season he puts whoever out there, I gotta say, okay, well, gotta give him a shot. I'm gonna give him a shot. I'm not gonna try and judge it too bad, because we're putting a lot of stock in Bill Callahan. I think, we're kind of saying well, what if we would have had Bill Callahan last season? Would that line have been 30-40% better just because it's Bill Callahan? I don't know. I don't know how much. Bill Callahan obviously does make a big difference, but you still have to have the players. You still have to have the talent. You know what I mean? Could Bill Callahan got anything out of Andre Dillard? I think that was a lost cause, man. I really do.
That was Rand's guy.
Right. So when it comes to things like that, could Bill Callahan, could he have been the savior for Andre Dillard? I don't think so. Andre Dillard was that bad and that slow. The same with Dennis Daly. So I think, there comes a talent factor too. And obviously Bill Callahan has a lot better talent than what we had last year, with Latham, with Cushenberry. So I think he's got a lot more to work with than what he would last season with us.
Yeah. Again, I understand that too. Mitchell had me laughing here. He said, depends on what game. Billy Bob was unstoppable. He really was. He really was.
That's true.
But I just get worked up because, again, that would tell me training camp doesn't matter, right? If you just give Charles the spot and say, hey, we trust in Bill Callahan, then you know what? That's fine. I'm not an offensive line coach. I'm not Bill Callahan. I understand that. But at the end of the day, I'm just telling you, Brunskill, I'm not sure why it changed on him, why he's been thrown to the wolves for and everyone just disses him, and now all of a sudden, Charles, it's gonna be Charles, whatever. Radens, I think he's got a shot. I think he should be your right tackle. I'm gonna stand by my comments, but I agree with what you said. He came out and said, look, they said they were just gonna keep me at right guard. That goes to my other point. That's another issue. that's an issue because now you're taking one more option off the table. When, hey, he has a really good camp, we still want to go with Sadiq Charles because Bill said so. But now he doesn't have a shot to play right tackle, even though he might be better than the guy because you've already told him he's not playing right tackle. Don't worry about it. That's my only issue with that.
Right.
Leading me into my last topic, right? Right tackle. Oh, my goodness. That right side's going to be huge. So right tackle, here we go. They're going to give the keys to Nick Petit-Frere to start the season. We do have some other guys. Christian Watson are latecomers, but Bill brought him in, so they're there for some possibilities, some strength to that offensive line. Ojukwu has played a lot at that spot to start mini camp and stuff because Petit-Frere's not there. Notice I don't have Duncan on there because I don't think Duncan's going to be the guy. There was another name on here I did not put as well. Maybe it was just Duncan. But what do you see for that right spot? Right's going to be very key because J.C. Latham would have been ideal at right tackle if you had a left tackle. You don't have a left tackle, so They move him over there. But right tackle is very, if you buy anything to like Floyd Reese and stuff back in the day, he always said the Titans would be in trouble because they never had a right tackle until they drafted Conklin. So my question to you is, of these guys, who do you think is going to be the key starter at right tackle?
I think MPF's going to get the start. Like at this point, I think he played decent his rookie season. Like I don't know what really happened going into this season. Now, obviously, he had the suspension. I think he just, for whatever reason, never really stepped into the role or bounced back from it. He had 117 snaps last year. Terrible PFF grade. 35.5. Out of 117 snaps. So not a huge sample size. But I don't know. I think it's going to be MPF. I think they're making a lot out of John Ojukwu. I don't know much about the Ojukwu guy. Said he was rookie free agent following 2023 draft. Boise, played in 56 games, 51 starts, including 18 at right tackle, 33 at left tackle, over 6 seasons at Boise State. So he played 6 seasons in college. How does one play 6 seasons for one college?
It's a new day and age, man.
I don't know. Anyways, I have to look more into that. But I don't know. I think it's going to be a battle for that position, but I think right now you would have to say MPF, right? Just on the surface.
Yeah. Jesse says, I think it's who Rand has brought in for Brian Callahan to run the offense. Obviously, the team has drastically changed, either for the better or the worse. It's just something we'll have to wait and see. Stanley says Leroy Watson's his guy.
Yeah.
Mitchell said that NPF scares him, and I would agree with that. He scares me too. And then Mitchell also says about the sickness exemption. I don't want to get flagged by YouTube still by saying the word. I don't know why that's a big deal, but whatever. But yeah, I think Nick Petit-Frere third round pick out of Ohio State. He was okay his first year. And then last year, I think things got derailed on him. Didn't get off to a good start because he couldn't participate. Even when he did participate in preseason games, he was getting whooped up on third-team guys. I remember the first game against the Bears, he was getting destroyed in the Bear game last year, whenever that preseason game was against the Bears. But ultimately, I think it's not going to be Duncan. So if Watson or Christian can give you anything at the right tackles to solidify it, if NPF's not your guy, they need to have a solid right side. The right side doesn't have to be the best side of the line, but it's got to be serviceable, because I think the left side will carry them for most of the year. And then next year, if Petit-Frere's not your guy, then Callahan's going to have to go out and get a right tackle to solidify the right side. It's very important, though. Anybody that tells you offensive line right side is not important, it doesn't matter who you threw out there, They have no idea what they're talking about because it does matter. And it's burned this team in the past, and it will burn this team going forward. They got to fix the right side. That's all I'll say. But yeah, I agree. Nick Petit Frere. Tom says these players need to get off the porch and practice. I agree with Tom. Ready to go. Tom Miller, shout out to you. Because training camp this week, they'll report on the 23rd. All right, we're getting out of here. We got one last thing to ask you, and we'll go quick. You guys can talk about it in the chat as well. Josh Wiley. I've heard a lot of great things about Josh Wiley in camp. Will Levis loves him. I did a video on him, and a lot of people reacted in a positive way to that. So Josh Wiley, I'm asking you, Rossi, your honest opinion, will he be the number one tight end when this thing's all said and done in 2024 for the Titans?
I don't think so. I mean, I think Chig has too much ability to not be. Like, I don't see Wiley being. I mean, yeah, he's athletic, he's tall, and this and that, but I think Chig really has a lot of upside. I still have hope in Chig, man. Like, I really do. I mean, he had the kind of sophomore slump. First half of the season, not great. He really picked it up in the second half of the season. So I think I still have a lot of hope in Chig. I think he's going to be your definite number one, but I think Wiley's going to get a lot more playing time for sure. Like I do have, I do think Wiley could be pretty good, but I don't see the athletic like compare. Like I just think Chig's just another level.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I've heard he can't really block that well. He didn't play in a lot of games last year because he's hurt. But I've also heard the comparison, like the dude looks really good this summer. Like he looked enough good to get I mean, they all got invited to Cabo with Levis, but he went. So did Okonkwo. But Will Levis shouted him out, said he came in great shape, new offensive staff. He is tall, like you mentioned. Some people are hoping he turns into a Travis Kelce at some point. But I think that's all yet to be determined.
That'd be great.
But I'll tell you, though, if Okonkwo goes out there and keeps dropping footballs when they mean something, then I can see Wiley definitely taking that spot. But for right now, I agree with you with Okonkwo. So with all that being said, show is over. You guys have survived. We have survived. If you guys are still here, definitely help us out by tightening up that like button. If you are new to the channel and have not subscribed yet, we'd love to have you. We'll have a busy week this week as we are preparing, obviously, for training camp, which will kick off by the end of the week. Players will report on the 23rd. We'll keep you updated. Rossi already said he's going to be going live Tuesday, right? Was it Tuesday?
Tuesday and more, and Tuesday and Thursday.
And Thursday. Power Hour will still be going over his Lost Ring series tomorrow. I think 2002. I think he's covering tomorrow. So definitely stop by and give him some support and tighten up the like button for him. But any last comments, Rossi, before we end the show?
No, not really. Other than, guys, thank y'all so much for tuning in. We appreciate it. We look forward to this season a lot, and tighten up, everybody.
Tighten up. That's always a good word. So till next time, we're signing off. You guys have a great night. And remember, we're one day closer. Tighten up.